the gift I brought to my daughter's wedding, fit in the palm of my hand. I'd wrapped it carefully. Cream tissue paper, a sprig of dried lavender tucked under the ribbon, the way I used to wrap her birthday presents when she was small and still excited to tear them open. The passbook was old, the cover soft as chamois from 32 years in my possession. Meridian Credit Union, stamped across the front in letters that had faded from gold to a pale brass. I'd opened that account the same month her father left. The same month I started my first overdraft at Hamilton General. I waited until the cocktail hour to give it to her. The Ashgrove estate sat on 23 acres outside Ancaster, the kind of property that showed up in architecture magazines and weekend supplement spreads. My daughter had chosen it because it photographed beautifully, because the stone walls dated to the 1870s, because her new husband's colleagues would recognize the name. 240 guests, caterers from Toronto, a string quartet playing something I didn't know. I found her near the rose garden, alone for exactly 40 seconds between photo sessions. I wanted you to have this. I held out the package. I've been saving it for you. She took it the way you accept something from a stranger on the street. Arms extended, body leaning slightly back. She glanced over my shoulder to see who was watching. She didn't have time to open it before my son-in-law appeared. He had a way of materializing precisely when he wasn't needed. Tall, easy smile, the kind of confidence that comes from never having had to worry about anything for very long. He plucked the package from her hands before she could speak. "What have we got here?" He unwrapped it without waiting, turned the passbook over in his hands, and then laughed, one sharp sound. "A passbook? Seriously? What is this, 1989? He passed it to my daughter the way you pass along something mildly embarrassing. She looked at it. She looked at him. She looked at the 50 or 60 guests drifting close enough to overhear. "It's sweet, Mom." Her voice dropped to that particular register I'd learned to dread, careful, managing the tone she used when she wanted me to understand I'd done something wrong without her having to say it directly. "You didn't have to." His mother appeared from somewhere behind me, trailing white linen perfume and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. She was the kind of woman who wore silk to outdoor events and never seemed to get cold. "Oh, how charming." She peered at the passbook with the expression of someone examining a curiosity in a museum. A credit union passbook. I didn't realize they still issued those. My daughter's cheeks went pink. My son-in-law said, "We're pretty digital these days." He handed the passbook back to my daughter and turned to greet someone more interesting. My daughter stood there for a moment, the passbook in her hand, caught between me and her new life. I could see her choosing. I watched her choose. She set the passbook on the edge of the stone garden wall. "Thank you, Mom." Then she was gone, swept away toward the photographer, her husband's hand on the small of her back. I stood there for a moment, looking at the passbook sitting on the wall. Then I picked it up, tucked it into my handbag, and walked to my car. I drove the 40 minutes back to Hamilton in the dark, still in my good dress from Reitman's, my church shoes pinching the way they always had. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and let the quiet settle around me. The same apartment I'd lived in for 11 years. 900 square feet on the 4th floor, the kind of building where you could hear your neighbor's television through the wall. A mug of tea. The passbook sitting on the table in front of me. I didn't cry. I'd stopped doing that in my 30s. What I did instead was go to my bedroom closet, push past the winter coats, and kneel down to the fireproof box I kept behind the extra blankets. The combination was my daughter's birthday, back when she still called me on mine. Inside, 41 property deeds, rental agreements, 3 binders of financial statements from accounts that didn't exist on any document connected to my name, a folder labeled Portfolio Summary, updated every January. Current value, $26.4 million. I'd started in 1993. Divorced, 31 years old, raising my daughter on a housekeeper salary at Hamilton General Hospital, I overheard two men in the cafeteria talking about a duplex going to power of sale on Barton Street East. $48,000. Everyone said it was a bad part of town. I bought it anyway, using every dollar I'd saved in 4 years of overnight shifts. I fixed it myself from library books. I rented both units within a month to a woman doing her nursing certificate and her sister, two people who just needed somewhere decent and affordable. That was the beginning. I never bought anything I couldn't carry. Small properties, multi-unit buildings, student rentals near Mohawk and McMaster, single mothers, tradespeople, healthcare workers, people like me, who were good for the rent every month because they understood what it cost to fall behind. 32 years. Every dollar from rental income went into the next property or into that credit union account. I kept the passbook as a kind of emergency reserve, a separate stream I never touched. I wanted to give it to my daughter all at once, the way you might hand someone a map after they've been wandering for a long time. I pulled out one more document from the box. A property deed, Ash Grove Estate Holdings, acquired October 2018 through my numbered company, 1847293 Ontario Inc. My initials rearranged, my numbers. The previous owners had run it beautifully for years, then overextended during renovations and couldn't service the debt. The bank listed it quietly. Everyone said heritage properties were money pits. I paid cash, $3.8 million. My property manager, a man named Hank, who'd been in the business since before my daughter was born, had been running weddings and corporate events out of it for 6 years. Profitable, every year since 2020. My daughter had chosen it for her wedding because it was the kind of venue that made a statement. She had no idea her mother owned the stone walls, the rose garden, every acre of manicured grounds she'd walked across in her dress that cost more than I made in a month. That night, I sat with the deeds spread across my kitchen table until after midnight. Then I went to bed. The next morning, I drove to my Meridian branch on Upper James. I was there before they unlocked the doors. The young man at the counter was polite, professional, probably fresh out of college. He took the passbook, typed in the account number, and went very still. He looked at the screen. He looked at me. He looked at the screen again. "I'm going to get our branch manager," he said. "Would you mind waiting just a moment?" A woman in her 50s came out of the back office with the particular expression of someone trying to remain composed. She shook my hand with both of hers and guided me toward a private room. She confirmed the account number, confirmed my identification, and then turned the screen so I could see it clearly. The balance, including interest compounded over 32 years, is currently $8.1 million. I'd known the number. Hearing it spoken out loud was different. "I'd like to withdraw the full amount," I said. "Bank drafts, made out to my numbered company." She didn't blink. We spent 2 hours on paperwork. By noon I had what I needed, and I walked out into a gray Hamilton Tuesday, carrying $8.1 million in a plain manila envelope inside my canvas tote bag, the one from the hospital gift shop. I also walked out with a name. She wrote it on a card for me, a former RCMP officer who now ran a private investigation firm out of an office on King Street West. She said he was careful, discreet, and had handled sensitive matters for several of her clients. She said he was good. I called him that afternoon. We met 2 days later. He was in his early 60s, the kind of quietly competent that doesn't advertise itself. He'd spent 22 years in financial crimes with the RCMP before going private. He told me that up front, which I appreciated. I told him what I wanted to know about my son-in-law. He didn't ask why. He told me his rate and asked me to come back in 5 days. What he found was worse than I'd expected. My son-in-law worked as a financial advisor at a boutique wealth management firm in downtown Toronto. Salary of $92,000. but he lived like someone making 4 times that. A condo in Liberty Village, a leased BMW, skis trips to Whistler in February, dinners at restaurants that didn't list prices online. The gap was being filled from somewhere. The investigator had traced wire transfers to an account in the Cayman Islands. He'd also found irregularities in client statements. Numbers that didn't reconcile, investment reports showing returns that the underlying funds hadn't generated. The word he used was misappropriation. The legal word for it was fraud. "How much?" I asked. "Conservatively, 400,000. He's been careful, but not careful enough." "My daughter?" He shook his head. "I've been thorough. Her accounts are separate. She has no access to the offshore account, no involvement in the client management. As far as I can tell, she has no idea." I sat with that for a long moment. She had no idea. She had no idea her husband was stealing from people's retirement savings, while she was embarrassed by a credit union passbook at her wedding. I thought about calling her. I thought about everything she would say. I could already hear her voice. "Mom, you've never liked him. Mom, you're doing this because you can't let go. Mom, I'm not a child anymore." She wouldn't believe me. She'd defend him. She'd choose the life she'd built over the truth I was offering, because the truth was inconvenient, and I was just her mother who cleaned hospital rooms for a living. "What would you like to do with this information?" he asked. "I need to make a report," I said, "and I need to think about how this ends." I submitted an anonymous report to the Ontario Securities Commission through their online portal, using a computer at the Central Library on Spears Road. I uploaded every document the investigator had given me, organized and labeled, with a cover letter that explained exactly what I'd found and where to look for more. The kind of report that comes from someone who knows how to read a spreadsheet. The confirmation number they sent back was OSC 2024-4419. I wrote it on a scrap of paper and folded it into my wallet. My daughter called 11 times in the next week. I let them all go to voicemail. The first few messages sounded like her managing me, the way she always did when she wanted to smooth something over without actually addressing it. "Mom, I know you're upset. I know the wedding was overwhelming. Can we just talk?" By the 4th message, something had changed. She'd noticed that her husband was different, anxious, distracted, snapping at her over small things. By the 8th, her voice was smaller. "Mom, something's going on with Cole. He won't tell me what. I'm scared." I listened to all 11 standing in the break room at the hospital at 2 in the morning, eating a banana and drinking bad coffee. Then I put my phone back in my locker and went back to mopping the 4th floor corridor. 2 weeks after the wedding, I called Hank. "I need to talk to you about Ash Grove," I said. He'd worked for me long enough to know that when I said I need to talk, I meant I'd already decided. "What's the plan?" "I want to convert it. Residential. Affordable units, 48 apartments, rent geared to income. Priority for healthcare workers, tradespeople, teachers." A long silence. "Elva." He only used my name when he was genuinely concerned. "That property is generating solid revenue, and the renovation costs alone." "I know what they are. I want to start the planning process." Another pause. "This is about the wedding, isn't it? This is about what I want to do with a building I own." "Okay," he said finally. "I'll start making calls." The demolition crew arrived on a Thursday morning in October. I was there with a hard hat and my work boots from Canadian Tire. When the first interior wall came down inside the original ballroom, the room where my daughter had danced at her wedding, where her husband had made that one sharp sound of laughter, I felt something settle in my chest. Not satisfaction exactly, more like clarity. My daughter arrived 40 minutes later. I heard her car before I saw her. The way she took the gravel too fast, the door slamming. She was still in her coat from work, her hair not fully dry. She'd driven here the moment she'd seen the permit filings that mentioned the property address. "Mom, She walked straight through the construction tape. One of the workers moved to stop her and I waved him off. "What are you doing? This is Ash Grove. You can't just—" "I can," I said. "I own it." She stopped. "I bought it in 2018, I said, "through my numbered company." "Your company," she said it the way you repeat something in a language you don't speak. "I own 41 properties across Hamilton, Brantford, and Burlington. Ash Grove is the largest. I've been thinking about what to do with it for some time." My daughter sat down on a pile of broken drywall. She didn't do it on purpose. Her legs simply stopped holding her. "You're a housekeeper," she said. "I am. I'm also a landlord." I looked at her carefully. "I've been cleaning hospitals since you were 2 years old. Every overtime shift, every extra weekend, every dollar that didn't go toward raising you went into a savings account or a down payment. I bought my first property 31 years ago. I built everything from there." She stared at me. "Why didn't you tell me?" I'd thought about how to answer this question for a long time. The rehearsed version felt wrong, standing in a half-demolished ballroom looking at my daughter's face. "Because I wanted to know who you'd become on your own," I said, "without the money changing how you saw yourself, without it changing how you saw me." I paused, but I was wrong to do it that way. Keeping it secret was my mistake, not a lesson I was teaching you. I should have been honest with you years ago. I'm sorry for that part. She looked up. "I'm not sorry about the work," I said. "I'm not sorry about any of it." Her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. Her face changed. "It's Cole. He says there are people at the office asking questions." She looked up at me. "Mom, what did you do?" "I reported what I found," I said. "When someone is stealing from people's retirement savings, you report it." The color left her face. Stealing. $400,000 approximately. Client funds moved to an offshore account. He's been doing it for 2 years. She stood up. She sat back down. She pressed her hand over her mouth. I let her have the time she needed. "Does he know it was you?" "No, and it doesn't matter. The evidence would have been found eventually. I only made it sooner." "Did I know?" she asked quietly. "Will they think I knew?" "No. I gave the investigators documentation, proving your accounts are separate and clean. You're not in any danger." She started crying. Not the careful kind of crying that photographs well, but the kind that comes from somewhere deep and doesn't care who's watching. I sat down beside her on the broken drywall. "I left your gift on a wall," she said. I walked away and didn't look back. "You did." The passbook, how much was in it? $8.1 million. She made a sound I'd never heard from her before. "It was savings I never touched," I said. 32 years of putting money away and leaving it alone. I was going to give it to you when I thought you were ready for it. And now? It's in trust. It'll be there when you've earned it." She wiped her face with the back of her hand, the way she used to when she was small, and trying not to show she'd been crying. "What do I have to do?" "Decide who you want to be," I said. "Not who he wanted you to be. Not who his family expected. Who you actually are." Her phone rang again. She looked at it, then turned the screen face down on the rubble. 3 days later, my son-in-law was arrested at his office. His firm had been cooperating with investigators since the second day. The RCMP's Integrated Market Enforcement Team moved quickly once the OSSC referral came through with everything laid out for them. His mother drove from Oakville to try to manage the situation and found there was nothing left to manage. My daughter called me from the parking lot of their condo building at 9 o'clock that evening. She'd taken what she could fit in 2 bags. She asked if she could come to my apartment. I told her I'd put the kettle on. She slept on my pull-out couch for 3 weeks. She didn't ask about the money. She didn't ask about the properties. She got up every morning, went to her job, came home, made dinner, and washed up. On weekends, she came with me to Ash Grove to walk the construction site with the architect and the project manager. She had good instincts about space. She knew which layouts worked for families with children, which common areas would actually be used, what the light did in the east-facing units at different hours. Hank noticed before I did. "She's good," he told me one afternoon while my daughter was inside arguing with the architect about hallway widths. "Genuinely good. You know that?" "I'm starting to," I said. 18 months after my son-in-law's arrest, he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of fraud over $5,000 and 1 count of breach of trust. His firm established a restitution fund. His mother sent me a letter. I read it once and put it in the recycling. The Ash Grove conversion took 2 years. 48 units, rent geared to income, priority given to healthcare workers, educational assistants, personal support workers, and single-parent families on waiting lists. We kept the stone exterior, the original windows, the heritage designation. Inside, everything was new. I was there for the first move-in day in October. A woman in her late 40s arrived with her teenage son and a pickup truck borrowed from a friend. She was a PSW at St. Joe's, had been on the housing wait list for 3 years. She shook my hand for a long time without saying anything. Then she said, "I don't know how to thank you. You already paid rent for years into a system that gave you nothing back," I said. "This one will." My daughter stood beside me holding her clipboard. She'd been managing tenant applications for 8 months by then. She knew every file. At the end of the afternoon, when the last family had gotten their key and gone inside, she turned to me. "Have I earned it?" she asked. "Not the money. Have I earned?" She stopped, started again. "Have I earned the right to understand what it was you were trying to give me? That day at the wedding?" I looked at her for a long moment. "You already have," I said. "The question is whether you believe it. Not the dollar amount, the work behind it, the 32 years of nights. Whether you understand that what I put in that passbook wasn't an insult or a relic, it was everything I didn't spend on myself so I could give it to you whole." She was quiet. "I understand now," she said. "I know you do." I put my hand on her shoulder briefly. "That's why I answered the phone." She looked at me. "What do you mean?" "The night you called from the parking lot, you asked if you could come." I picked up my own clipboard, because there were still keys to account for and forms to file, and 100 small things that needed doing. "I answer when someone's ready to come home." She wiped her face, took a breath, looked at her list. "The family in Unit 14 said the kitchen faucet has a drip. Put in a work order." "Already did." We walked back inside together. That evening I returned to my apartment. The same 900 square feet, the same 4th-floor view of the parking lot, the same kettle, the same chair by the window where I'd sat 31 years ago and decided to spend $48,000 on a run-down duplex on Barton Street East because I believed that things could be different if you were willing to do the work. I still worked my shifts at the hospital. Not because I had to, because the work mattered. Because there were floors that needed mopping, and rooms that needed to be clean, and patients who deserved care delivered by someone who showed up and did it right. Because I had learned something in 32 years of overnight shifts that no amount of money could have taught me any faster. That dignity is not conferred by a job title. It is built the same way everything worth having is built. Slowly, quietly, one day at a time, whether or not anyone is watching. The passbook is framed now, hanging above my kitchen table. Dried out, a little warped at the corners, the leather soft and worn. Meridian Credit Union in faded letters. My daughter comes for dinner on Sundays. We don't talk about her ex-husband. We talk about the tenants, the next property, what she's learning. Last week she told me she's thinking of enrolling in property management courses at Mohawk. She said it the way she used to tell me things when she was young. Not asking permission, not managing my reaction, just telling me something true about who she was. I told her that was a good idea. It was the best conversation we'd had in years. I sat at that table after she left, the passbook on the wall above me, the city quiet outside my window. Somewhere across Hamilton, 48 families were sleeping in apartments that hadn't existed 2 years ago. In the morning, a woman who worked double shifts at the hospital would wake up in a home she could afford and get ready for work without the weight of an impossible rent bill pressing down on everything else. I hadn't built that for my daughter. I hadn't built it for revenge. I built it because that's what you do with something you've been given. You pass it forward into the hands of people who need it, in whatever form makes it most real. The passbook wasn't spare change. It was 32 years of choosing, every single day, what mattered more.